Hello and welcome to the Podioslave podcast. I'm here tonight with my friends Anthony and Nate. Hey guys.
What's going on? Episode 3 coming at you.
What up? How is everyone?
I'm good, man. I'm at home, just sitting in the. We're all practicing social distancing. The last couple of episodes, I was able to be in person with Anthony while we Skyped Nate across the country. But with the way things are right now, we decided to all be on our own. So it may sound just a tad bit different this week, but hopefully still fun nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't really notice a difference as far as quality-wise, so shout out to technology for making this possible.
I know, right? Just awesome.
So
tonight, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nate.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, this is what everyone's doing right now is Skyping and doing virtual communication. So we're just ahead of the curve. Not really, but you know what I mean.
We're embracing the curve, and while we try to flatten it at the same time.
Boom, boom.
Oh, hey, yeah, jokes. So tonight we're gonna start with a couple of things, topical things we've noticed. There's been a lot of artists and bands that have put out content this week and the last couple of weeks for people to watch while they're quarantined at home. Instagram Live, Facebook Live, stuff like that. YouTube, even we've seen some stuff. So we're gonna kind of round robin it a little bit and talk about what we've seen that we've liked, and then we're gonna review the new Pearl Jam album that came out today because Nate obviously is a resident Pearl Jam freak. I love him too. Twan loves him too, but Nate that's his bread and butter. So he was gonna see him on a bunch of times on this tour coming up, but hopefully down the road he can do that and we can all go see him again. But yeah, that's kind of the plan for the beginning part, and then we're going to talk about kind of our early music memories, things that we got us into music, and how albums we loved when we were kids and growing up, and shows we went to when we were younger that kind of gave us the bug and got us into wanting to do something like this. So that's kind of the format for tonight. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add to that.
No, I think, one of the big things that we were chatting about is just nostalgia. And, we do have those live stream artists that we can watch on like Facebook and, Twitch and whatnot. So that's an outlet. But a lot of right now, it's just throwback stuff. Like ESPN, it's all throwback. It's all old March Madness tournaments. I even saw, not sports, but... I'm sorry, not music, but sports. Steph Curry tweeted out that he was watching his old clips. He was on YouTube watching his old highlights. So I can only imagine artists are probably going back and
yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah. Or unearthing stuff from 20 years ago that they've just been sitting on. It's like, hey, this is a good time to here's a live video from a show we did 20 years ago.
Yeah, and maybe even preparing for these delayed tours. Watching their what they did right, what they did wrong, kind of like a fighter or something, like a MMA or something. Like, oh, I really nailed it at that show, and I was doing this. I remember doing this to prepare for that show. I wonder if that's going on too. So yeah, that is a good point.
So who have you guys seen? Who have you guys seen?
Back to that. The one that I think I liked the best was the Ben Gibbard stuff from Death Cab is cool just because of he's trying to raise money for a local Seattle foundation, and he's done it every day for like 2 weeks for an hour and a half, and it's been like lots of cool. It's storytellers from his home studio, which has been really, really awesome. I last Saturday night, POS from Doomtree was on Jeff Rosenstock's Instagram. That he had about 4 or 5 people from different places around the country. Nice. I'm a big Doomtree fan. I'm a big POS fan. Going back 15 years from when I saw him up this way with you, Nate. Whenever they come through, I want to see either POS or the Doomtree crew. So he, in his bedroom with his phone with the beats in hand, just plugging it in and kind of going nuts in his bed. It was just awesome. It was like half an hour of just 6 or 7 songs with high energy and trying to make the best of a shitty situation for all of us. So that was probably my favorite one so far.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but I was thinking about how hip hop would translate in a bedroom, because that's obviously there's certain genres that translate better. Like a guy, singer songwriter type like Gibbard, he probably nails it in his bedroom. But POS, if he nailed it, in his own bedroom, that's a testament to him.
It was he had a couple of oh shit, I started the one with lyrics, I meant to start the instrumental, my bad, and like started over. And then he went like 5 minutes over, and he's like, hey, it's punk rock, man. Like it wouldn't be
That's
punk
awesome.
rock if it wasn't a fuck up here and there. Sorry, Jeff, I know you're next, and thanks for the platform, but I'm gonna go over and play another song.
That's
Although
awesome. That's probably
like
how we got started.
That's the new norm, which is a lot of these hip hop artists play the full backtrack is with lyrics to give them a reprieve. It's almost like karaoke.
Yeah.
So actually, the bedroom show is probably better for hip hop because they're on the hook. If there's no backtrack.
Yeah. So, what'd you like, Nate? What'd you see?
I watched the Dave Matthews one with my wife, and same thing. It was just him solo. I think he did it in his like personal living room or something like that. And I was doing it for a charity as well, and it's cool that he did an interview with Jimmy Kimmel the night before, and said that he's up in Seattle. He lives in Seattle, so it's one of the hardest hit places, and the least he can do, and he's going through all this craziness with us, and that's why it's all relatable. I mean, he's home with his kids in lockdown, and he's like, I'll play this show and try to, it's like the least I can do kind of thing. It was really cool to see. But yeah, that's the one I saw.
Who was the one, Tony, you sent a screenshot. I think it was of Third Eye Blind, and the guitarist had a surgical mask on.
Yeah, it was Stephen Jenkins and Chris Reed from Third Eye Blind just hanging out in Jenkins's kitchen. That was about 20 minutes yesterday. It was on iHeartRadio's Instagram Live. I think I missed the first 5 minutes because I was like, oh shit, that just started. I got to turn that on. Threw it up to my TV and watched him play Ways off the new album Screamer, which is actually really good. If you guys haven't had a chance to take a listen, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I love most of what they do anyway, so it's definitely worth checking out. I was bummed I couldn't see them on the tour this fall, but that one, and then they close with Semi-Charmed Life, and I mean, obviously you've heard that song a million times, we all have, but it's a great song. And he's like, I don't know if I've ever done this acoustically like this, so that was kind of cool to hear him, just the two of them playing Semi-Charmed Life in an acoustic fashion in his kitchen. So
wow, it's almost like a throwback to MTV Unplugged, kind of out of nowhere. Maybe we'll get all that now. Just kind of cool.
Except in this era, there's no redos. If you're streaming it, it's out there. Unlike who was it? Aaron Lewis of Stained. They scrapped the whole MTV Unplugged when.
Did they really?
Yeah, they scrapped it because he was so bad vocally.
Really?
Wow.
And now he's a country star.
No kidding. Like he I guess it was really bad. They scrapped the whole thing. If you could look it up.
Wow, I've seen that's actually happened before with Alice in Chains. The performance is insanely good, like just like magical, but they only released the audio version. I was always wondering why they didn't put out the visual, and then they finally did. I think 6 years ago or so, I bought it on DVD and I played it. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so awesome! It's such an amazing, like an epic performance. And I realized the reason they didn't release it, or the reason they probably took so long. Again, I was watching this with my wife. She's like, man, this is like really hard to watch because you could see he was in a bad situation. Lane, the singer.
Staley, yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't look good. So it's like, oh man, they probably shelved this because everyone kind of had that same feeling, but maybe on demand they were like, all right, let's get this printed. People want it, so whatever.
And crazy. Acoustically and audio only, you can clean up and cut out bad parts.
Yeah, and it's just the music, and the music's beautiful, but visually it's like, oof, yeah.
Yep. Well, they were probably chasing that Nirvana one too, because that Nirvana one was amazing. That MTV Unplugged, where they were, he covered Bowie and just the three of them, just kind of really somber. And Nirvana was not somber at that point, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think
that's one of my favorites.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys might know, but they didn't press all the MTV Unplugs on CD. So I think they pressed Nirvana, so you knew it was good, and obviously it would sell.
Yeah. Yep. I have the Nirvana, but I had it on CD as a kid, and now I bought it on vinyl maybe 3 months ago. Check at Boozy Vinyl on Instagram. You might see it there.
Ooh, a plug of another plug.
Oh, plugging myself on my own podcast. What the hell?
Yeah. So what is Boozy Vinyl?
Yeah. About 2 years ago, my wife and I were just out at our local record store, Bull Moose Music, which is going to get a lot of run here because it's just OG and my favorite place. I know for buying CDs, books, all that stuff. And a book had come out that was called Booze and Vinyl, and we were like, I mean, she works as a distiller part time at a distillery that Nate actually used to work at as well here in Maine, and I love music obviously, and we just decided let's meld the two and take pictures of a record and a drink and turn it into here's a showcasing of our collection, and been doing that for about 2 years. Got about 100 posts, 120 posts. I just put one up today about Pearl Jam because we were talking about it.
Nice.
And it came out, and I don't have the record yet because they're shipping it from Bull Moose today because it came out today. But yeah, if you're bored and want to check out some filtered, some not photos of music and beers and drinks and all that fun stuff, a couple of concert shows, stuff like that. It's just it's an outlet for me to be creative. I'm not super creative, but I thought this would be fun. So that's what Boozy Vinyl is.
Nice. It's kind of like a stepping stone to this platform. They go hand in hand. Yeah, nice.
So we had the live streaming. I'm sorry, we had the live streaming concerts. But one thing regarding streaming I did see is overall streaming is down, and I think one of the kind of predictions we had a couple episodes ago was that streaming would go up in this whole
the only
pandemic.
prediction we got wrong.
I know that was the only one.
I was, and then we talked about it a little bit, and it's probably because people stream in their car and at the gym, and less people are going to work because they're working from home, and the gyms are closed. So there goes your streaming numbers, right? That makes sense as to why stuff has been down. And there have been a few bands that have pushed releases. A lot of people have been pulling stuff up and putting stuff out TV wise because more people are watching television. But as far as music goes, stuff has been kind of pushed because they want to get the numbers, which honestly, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I can see that, because I always stream Podioslave. I stream our own stuff.
You should stream Podioslave.
You wear your own band shirt. You wear the band shirt of the band you're in, or the one you're seeing.
It's all for QC. But no, Spotify, yeah, I use it at the gym, and I use it when I'm driving, and I use it when I'm running around like a crazy person, like with work and stuff. So now that all that's centralized to home, it's like, well, either silence or I guess I've been using SiriusXM more than Spotify lately. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that is probably what's attributing to that. But I actually think it's eventually going to go up, though. I think everyone's maybe in like a little shock phase where everyone's kind of glued to the news. And hopefully people are like, you know what, you need to unplug, kind of go about like a normal life and play music, do what you did, even though this is a completely different, setting and a 180 from like a daily routine, so.
Yep. Well, and I would say that people are doing the TV thing, and that will get old. You'll get sick of watching Netflix. I love Netflix. I watch Netflix. Don't get me wrong, but you'll get sick of that, and you'll want a different way to get a different outlet to content, and music is always there for me. You guys too. That's why we're doing this. I mean, we're in front of microphones because we like music, we love music, we want to talk about it, digest it, all that stuff. But it'll go back up. They'll go back up, especially as we the quarantine goes on longer as it's going to.
Yeah, the thing I was thinking about is a lot of people, obviously they're working from home. But the other people that are home are everyone's spouses, everyone's kids, and I know personally me, I don't have music on during the day now. I would at work, put headphones in. Yep. So I'm definitely factoring
So you're
into
the reason that the numbers are down. Come on, bro.
I did see...
Turn your headphones on.
No, when I'm walking the dog, I put the headphones on. But I did see you were talking about bands pushing releases. Hatebreed actually delayed their release indefinitely, and
I saw that.
And that was interesting because they're not like a SoundScan band. Like they're big. Yeah. Like don't get me wrong, they're big, but they're not like what I didn't get that. But
and okay, so extrapolate that out to Pearl Jam. Say Hatebreed obviously has a following, right? They're a pretty popular band in their circle. They have a cult following. Pearl Jam does too, probably on a little bit bigger of a scale, especially for our generation or a little bit older than us. If you put an album out as Hatebreed, your fans are going to listen to that. Whether the world is ending or not, if they have a chance to throw it on their headphones or their TV or whatever, their record player, they're going to. So that doesn't make... You're right. It's kind of a weird play for them to just put it on. Unless they didn't like what it was. Or maybe there was parts of it that were too... I mean, I know people, the connotation for metal is it's negative. It's not. If you listen to lyrics and stuff, it's really not. It's just heavy. So maybe it was too positive for them. Who knows? Like maybe they just said this isn't going to play like we talked about last week. You're not going to put out Pharrell's Happy or U2's Beautiful Day right now because things are not good. So that might be what it was.
I was just gonna say that I feel like that might be one of the core reasons why they did that, but I didn't read into it enough to get what's going on. There was a part of me that my first instinct was, oh, maybe the band's just breaking up. You know, I don't know. Jamie's got his own thing going on, but Jamie Jasta. But like, yeah, I don't know. It might be a hybrid of the two, or who knows, man. I mean, that's probably gonna be the first of many of those scenarios and who really knows what's going on and. Labels are going to fold, you know, things are going to like fall apart in the music industry, unfortunately. So that might be even out of their control or something like, hey, now this record label owns the rights to the music that you recorded that now you can't even release anymore because we own that. You don't own that kind of thing.
And that's the thing is most fans think the band makes every decision. Nope, not even close. That could have been the label.
Yeah, nope.
I don't even know who they're on anymore. They were on Koch for a while. They were on Victory. They were on Universal. I don't know who they're on now, but it could have been the label play saying, nope, you need to tour off that album, and that ain't coming out until...
Right. Let's push it until you can tour on it and make some money on it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speculation.
Labels got to eat too.
Yeah. Well, these are all educated guesses because I think you guys might have checked out that documentary, right? Jared from 30 Seconds to Mars. Artifact is a music industry documentary. About 30 Seconds to Mars.
I heard about it, but never saw it.
Well, that kind of goes to your point, Tuan. They owed the record label money on advances to make their prior 2 albums, something like this. It's just, this is going to be a little scattered in details, but they owed the record label money, so the record label tried to sue the band, and then to make up some kind of lost revenue or whatever. And then so they were like restricted the whole time to like make an album, go on tour, do all this stuff when they really didn't have a way to be creative. It was just like they felt like they were under this leash. So yeah, man, I don't know, but I know that those things happen a lot and we just don't hear about it. So unfortunately.
Well, another classic example of something like that is you signed a 3-album deal and you put 2 out and you're like, we don't want to be part of this. Maybe they've blown up a little bit and want to have a little more creative control. So they're like, yeah, here's our greatest hits from our first 2 records. Yeah. There's your 3rd album. Suck it. We're out of here.
Here's your live album. The live album is key. Yeah. That checks that box.
Yeah.
So I guess springboarding off of that, do you guys want to talk about Pearl Jam a little bit?
Yeah. What happened with those guys and who are they?
You know what? Nate should start because Nate knows a little bit more about Pearl Jam than we do. I'm sure he's met Eddie and Jeff and Stone and all those guys numerous times outside of their tour. But exactly. I have not met Eddie or Stone or Jeff or Matt Cameron or any of those guys. I haven't met them. So go for it, Nate.
All separately, but yeah, all cool guys.
Well, and you
man.
got to talk about Fest too because you see that every year down there. So
what's that?
Ohana Fest, Eddie's thing.
Oh yeah, it kind of all goes hand in hand. So yeah, Pearl Jam dropped their new record today, first time in 7 years. Though the last album they released is when I moved here in the fall of 2013, Lightning Bolt.
That's kind of
crazy. This new one, Gigaton, which is a reference to the amount of ice melt at our. The ice caps are melting at a rate faster than we predicted, so they're literally gushing water out. The measurement's called a gigaton. So kind of a realistic view on what's going on in the world, climate-wise, I guess. Whether you believe it or not, I think we can all agree that something's happening. But yeah, the record's really, really good. I stayed up last night. Got released at midnight Eastern time, so 9 p.m. West Coast.
I'm jealous of that. I'm not gonna lie.
No kidding.
Oh, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool because like you were saying, visually, they put the album out in kind of this collaboration with some really cool photography that was kind of streamed on YouTube for a bunch of us like geeks to just like watch in real time. So we got to listen to the album with these amazing visuals that were shot. It looks like it was shot internationally. I don't know the exact locations, but and the photographer is the same one that did the artwork for the album. So Paul Nickel, I believe.
Yep.
Super talented guy. And Yeah, the record's really good, man. I listened to it last night, and then I thought about it in my sleep, woke up, and then had to do some work from home, and then went to the record store that is right here in Encinitas. I told them I'd give them a shout out, so it's Lose Records in Encinitas. Really cool record store. Definitely similar to a Bull Moose, like grungy old.
Support your local record store, guys. If they're working online, buy something and have it sent to your house, especially if you have the means to do so.
Absolutely.
Don't even have to leave your house.
Yeah, I went there. It was weird. It was like to go take out album ordering. I was like, they told me to call, so I called and then ordered my album, went there in the parking lot, and they delivered it out like in a paper bag. You know, it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Just the bag, man. Go get the bag, bro.
Yeah. So I got the vinyl. Came with a cool promotional poster, which is usually something you get if you buy the album on the day of. All nerds will know this. It usually gets some kind of lithograph or something like that. So this is something I'll definitely frame. And yeah. What do you guys think? You guys check it out too, right?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, so I'm probably the smallest. Is that the right word? Smallest Pearl Jam fan. Nate, you're probably the biggest out of us three. For me, I liked it. I've actually listened to it twice. I listened to it last night, and then I had it played in the background. Couple standout tracks were Dance to the Clairvoyance. I liked Quick Escape. The highlight was definitely Retrograde. That was one of the slower and lighter songs. And as I was listening to it, I thought, hey, this would be great as like the first song of the encore at Fenway, you know?
Yeah,
and just
absolutely
everyone's singing along, and on a summer night like that, visually, that's what I put in my head. I thought it was a great record. Will I come back to it? I think I will, and that's always for me with with so many releases these days when you have everything at your fingertips. I might be into something the day it comes out, but I won't revisit it. This I'll probably revisit.
Nice. Very
cool. I would agree with you, Twan. I listened through it today a little bit last night. I got the first 4 or 5 songs before it was too late and I had to go to bed. But I Clairvoyance I liked. I had heard that was the only song I had heard going into it. I purposely albums that I'm excited about. I purposely try to stay away from singles and not listen to stuff. And I want to get the whole album experience and listen to it from front to back. Clairvoyance I had heard at work a few times because it had been over a Sirius that we listened to, and I had liked. I was like, that sounds cool, but I was trying to ignore it even there. I was like, it's on in the background. Don't pay too much attention to it. You're going to pay more attention to it in a couple of weeks. But that one I think is probably it's a different sound for them than other Pearl Jam songs. I thought that I was like, this just doesn't sound. I mean, it sounds like Pearl Jam because it's Eddie, and nobody sounds like Eddie, but it was different, which was cool. I was like, all right, I could get into this. This is something, you know, and I think they did that a couple of different times on the record. And then you get some straightforward Pearl Jam songs. There was one that I thought sounded very Never Destination. I thought sounded very Worldwide Suicide from Avocado, which came out. Geez, when did that come out, Nate? Like 15 years ago?
2005.
Yeah, 14, 06. Yeah.
05
so
06.
I thought that had a very Avocado feel to it. I thought the opening track had a very self-titled Avocado feel to it. So there were some straightforward Pearl Jam rock songs to kind of keep that old fan base at bay, but then there were some new different explorations for them, which was cool. And that's always fun when you get a band that's 30 years old. They're like, hey, we're gonna give you something different. We're gonna try something new. And I actually liked a lot of the departures, which was cool. I really liked Comes Then Goes. I think that was the third to last song. That one felt, I don't know, it felt like them, but it felt like something completely different than they would do too. So, and it was longer, but the guitar was just guitar and Eddie, and it fit. It was like, I'm sitting on my porch, the sun's shining. This just feels like a vibe, like I'm into this. So there were a few of those like that kind of caught me, but Clairvoyance I think is probably a standout. Retrograde's definitely a standout. I could see that towards the end of a set. Then Quick Escape was cool. This actually led me to a question for you guys, and I think you probably will agree with me, but listening to that, I'm like, the guitar solo is good. It's longish, but this is made for a live show. This song is made to play live. So that they could they could just unleash Mike and let him go on for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Right? You guys think like music is made sometimes with the live show in mind, right? It has to be.
I feel like it's got to be, but I've asked that question of myself so many times with like what seems like an automatic stadium rocker or something like that. So I'd assume so, especially if you're thinking about like hair metal and stuff like that. Pearl Jam was, I don't know if they knew they were going to get this big, but now they're obviously pretty huge. So maybe they are, making riffs that would be, perfect for some kind of like ginormous like Slane Castle in Ireland or something like that, But yeah, good point.
I think definitely.
I'm still listening to the album. What's that one?
I was gonna say definitely. Songs are made with live intent, whether it's a big sing along or like gang vocals or like a big breakdown. They want people to go crazy.
Call and answer, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
cool. Yeah.
Little throw to Slipknot, the Pulse of the Maggots literally has like a crowd going, yeah, like in the song. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's obviously supposed to be almost like a live track. But
you brought them up, so I'm gonna say it. They tossed out about 5 or 6 live videos. Slipknot did yesterday from a show they did like 2 or 3 months ago in a small venue, and it's a lot of the stuff that you would want to see live, and they sound awesome. So just check that out. Look up Slipknot. It was over in on the BBC, I think, on
Nice.
YouTube. I watched those yesterday while I was getting ready for work. I was like, this is just getting me ready to go, do my job today. I'm fired up.
it's awesome, man. Very cool.
Little tangent.
Sometimes you just have to play metal before you go to work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So little tangent. So they unleashed that from the vault. I also think I saw Nine Inch Nails release something. I don't know what it was, if it was live, unreleased, or demos. I have no idea, but I saw they released something.
I knew we were going to go over the Pearl Jam album tonight, so I didn't listen to it, but I did download it.
Same.
It's Ghosts 1 through 4 came out a while back. A lot of instrumental, just kind of experimentation things that Trent's done in the past with a few other people. My assumption is this is probably similar because it's Ghosts 5 and 6, right? That's the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my assumption is it's going to be more of that. I will definitely put that on at some point over the next couple of weeks, just because I'm a huge Nails fan, from 15, 16 years back. So I definitely want to listen to how that stuff sounds, and Trent doesn't usually disappoint.
Yeah, and the fact that he just threw it out there, like no warning,
Yeah,
just boom.
here's some free music, guys.
No,
Cool.
they were on the like donate what you can tip, right? Weren't they on that for a while?
Yeah, pay what you can.
Yeah, pay what you can. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a couple years, and this is now we're really tangenting right now. There was a couple years back, I remember going on the Nine Inch Nails website and finding a bunch of remixes to songs that were free downloads, and just like liking ones and downloading them and putting them on my hard drive and my iPod and stuff like that. So you could spend, if you're at all a Nails fan or a Trent Reznor fan, you could spend a solid 6 hours on that website and find a bunch of random stuff to listen to and enjoy yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that pay to play stuff was they would do like a free album, but if you wanted like a deluxe version of that album, like a gatefold, like vinyl, and it was signed by Trent, and it was not like numbered, which meant it was like a limited run kind of thing. I think those were going for like 3,000, and they sold out, immediately.
And he's
so
a nerd too.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I remember the interview. There's a great interview with Trent Reznor with the Dig founder Kevin Rose from like 2009. So it was the last time Nine Inch Nails called it a day for a little hiatus. But yeah, he said they were just they weren't even doing it to make money. He said, I'm sick of people talking about just trying to make money in the music industry. Like, obviously he's been very successful, but he's like, it shouldn't always be about just making money. He's a very creative guy. So he's like, I do this because this is what I need to do. This is what I have to do. So like those like deluxe versions and whatnot were essentially to break even and make a little bit of profit to funnel into the website.
Yeah, to do more.
So it's like, wow, in one big circuit. Yeah.
And another random tangent to go into that, a guy like Dave Grohl, who just made a new Instagram to write stories on, because he's like, I'm bored. Man. I'm gonna give you more content. Here you go.
And it's like such nerdery too.
Yeah, it's just awesome, right? It's like
it was really long.
That's the type of stuff we love.
I didn't read it all because it was. I mean, it wasn't long, but I just when I saw it, I didn't have enough time to.
You're like,
10?
Okay,
yeah,
I'll come back to that later. Bro, that's only supposed to be like 3, and you got me.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, when we were talking about the pay to play, Nate, I saw a local musician based out of I don't know somewhere in Maine, I think Portland area. He did a live stream acoustic. He just did covers, and I think he did some originals. And he had his PayPal and his Venmo information right on the screen, which was brilliant.
Wow.
He probably made more from that than if he went out and played somewhere in Portland.
Holy crap, that's really crazy.
I mean,
say you get a couple thousand people watch, and maybe they all throw a buck at you. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, probably
wow.
probably
half
not
of
that.
them. Half of them throw 25 cents at you as a joke.
No kidding.
You're just sitting in your living room playing music. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because otherwise, you're playing a dive bar, and you're getting maybe your beer tab covered. Yeah. Maybe.
Exactly. Wow, that's so funny. Because when you go to like a coffee shop or something, like or if you go to like a Starbucks, sometimes they'll see, and I feel bad for them, but like a homeless person, and they bust out a laptop. You're like, oh wow, the guy's a laptop, good for him. And you're like, man, with this guy, people shuffling, their payment terms online and whatnot, this guy could be doing something like that, or he could be doing foreign exchange trading or something like that. The guy's actually not homeless. He's hustling,
Yeah, kidding.
He just needs the free Wi-Fi.
We all look homeless because no one's gotten haircuts and no one's got beard trims, and we're all just at home in our living room, working from home and being unkempt. I would urge people to continue to shower, though. I mean, we can't lose all hope here.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection or you have a smartphone, you're in business in this era.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us.
Yeah.
And a microphone.
Yeah.
Mic. All I need is one mic.
Full disclosure, we don't get paid to do this, but
no,
eventually.
Not yet. I mean, all I really want is to like talk to my band heroes. At some point, I'd like to, hey, and Pearl Jam put out an album today, and we have Eddie Vedder on the line. Like, that's what we're looking for, right? I mean, let's be honest, we're just nerding out because we like to nerd.
Jeff Ament, the bassist from Pearl Jam, lives in Encinitas, the town I live in, and I've seen him a few times at like a brewing tap room around here, and once a second time he was just hanging out with Tony Hawk. I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. And I wanted to say hi, but I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. So I'm not that guy anymore, by the way.
You were that guy, though.
Let's be
honest. Yeah, only once. I remember you sending me pictures from when you were living in New York. Just here's me and Chris Cornell. Here's me.
Oh yeah.
Whoever you could run into. I remember speaking of doing that, waiting outside of the Bush tour bus, just hoping to see if Gwen Stefani was in town.
Oh yeah.
She wasn't, but someone ran across the stage that looked like her at the show. So we
and
were
the whole crowd cheered.
Everybody was like, "Gwen is here!
Gwen's here!" Yeah.
It was July in Maine, so it would have been a good time to be in Portland because Portland, Maine it's a boon of a summer town. Like, you need to see it. Come and buy our beer and buy our food so that we have places to go and stuff stays open. But we were like, holy crap, that looks like Gwen Stefani. And when she just sprinted across the stage. And the kid was there because we went to the meet and greet, Nate, and he signed our posters. So we were definitely here. But we never saw her. We stood out by the bus till probably 12:45 and didn't see her. So.
Oh, man. It's funny. Yeah, sometimes it's just to tell the stories, like talk to Chris Cornell about cool stuff, or like those Dave Grohl, that thing he's doing, like he's just telling old stories. That's the epitome of nerdery. He's just like geeking out. I think he was like, I got like halfway through that post, and it was just like him talking about like buying fireworks and some crazy stuff. He's a crazy guy. So
yeah, he's Animal from the fucking Muppets. I mean, that's that's just, and he agrees. He would agree with that.
And that's the thing in this downtime, whether it's 2 more weeks or 2 more, well, not years, but 2 more months, you're gonna get some stuff from the vault. And it'll be interesting to see what bands come to the table with it. I mean, like we said, you saw 9 Inch Nails. Who knows? Foo Fighters might come with something.
Well, they have an album that is like ready to come out, don't they? I feel like there's an album in the very near future, and they put out all of last year. They put out a ton of live stuff. And I just randomly stumbled upon it about, I don't know, 3 months ago and was like,
Yeah.
did you guys see this? Like, holy shit, they just put out a bunch of random live music. So there's plenty of, I'm sure there's even more of that for the Foos and other big bands that are just like, yeah, we've been sitting on this stuff. Now's as good a time as any to let people wet their beak a little bit.
Yeah. No, Foos did have a record ready, man. It was apparently a very trippy record, according to the band. It was like something way, way off course from what they usually do. And then they had like a 30th anniversary tour. And from what I was getting for hints, they were going to do like small club dates either before or after the gig. There's like some kind of like subliminal messages on their posts and stuff. He's like, this is like our first tour and we played like this room with like 100 people. That'd be crazy to do that today. This is before
Here it
COVID,
is.
by the way. This is before COVID. And he's like, or would it be? Like hinting like, yeah, we're going to play these like arenas and stuff. But I have a feeling they were going to play some like small ass rooms like the night right after the gig or something crazy like that, which is something I could see Dave doing for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He would be all about that.
Yeah.
Well, there was footage. We might have chatted about this in one of the earlier episodes, but there was footage that came out a couple of years ago, I think, where they played someone's garage.
Yep.
Yeah, and at their home garage. Like, how badass is that?
I
would
have killed to be at that.
I think it was a contest. Yeah, for what record was that? Wasting Light, I think. A few years back.
That's great. Yeah, that was probably, that's 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah, so it might have been before that.
Because Sonic Highways has come out, and so has the one after. What's the name of the one after? Shit. Well, they put out 2 records since Wasting Light, so we're talking a little ways back. And Sonic Highways had that HBO series that they did a lot of video for each
Chasing
song.
Highways.
Yeah, that was a cool. I don't know if you guys got to watch the Sonic Highways HBO. That was pretty cool. They're in different cities for each song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chicago, New Orleans, New York, Seattle. It was worth peeping if you're stuck at home and haven't watched that yet, and you're a music nerd like we are.
Ooh, good call. Yeah, it tells how those towns shape the sound of the music. So like jazz will sound a certain way because it's in that geographic, and you go to like SoCal, and obviously it's very like chill, like surfer type music, or not always, but there's some elements. Yeah. Yep. So
and they went to Tennessee. They had Zach Brown and the Tennessee song, the song from Nashville, and it's another tangent, but on top of tangent. You guys should drink at home if that's a thing too. They did the Grohl sessions for the Zach Brown band, where Grohl helped make 4 songs. That's on streaming services. That's a fun 4 songs to listen to. Zach he likes rock too. I mean, he had Cornell on his album a couple albums ago, and it's just a straight up rock song. Heavy as the Head. It's friggin' awesome. Like, if you don't have to like country to like what Zach Brown does. So I'd peep some of his stuff too.
Nice.
We're just nerding out.
Yeah,
just letting it rip.
We do have a topic tonight we haven't gotten to, but yeah, we're definitely off on one right now. So
it's like going on Wikipedia. It's like one thing that like links to another. Boom, boom.
It really does.
Oh wait,
that should be the tagline for our podcast. We are the ultimate YouTube deep dive.
YouTube deep dive, because you could be on something and then the recommendation is like,
no idea
how to make a rare recipe or something.
Do we want to pop into that topic a little bit?
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, I think we've talked a lot about the what's going on currently with Pearl Jam and streaming and whatnot, but for us, this started real young. So we're all in our mid-30s. So we all were born in the mid-80s. So for me, I know this goes back, music goes back pretty close to 30 years, 25 to 30 years. So for me, I know we had a couple things in mind. We want to touch upon the first albums that we got into, and then also kind of first live music, first shows we saw and whatnot. So I did some nerding out and really cataloged a lot of the first albums that I got into, and then also same with the live shows. So Nate, do you want to start us off here? Maybe start with some first albums, like
First, I actually remember them so vividly. just the first 3 exact albums I got were Nirvana Unplugged. So when Tone was talking about that earlier, I remember when I picked that up. I believe it was at what was Best Buy before Best Buy?
Lechmere.
Right?
Yeah.
Lechmere. Holy crap. I don't know how that I remember that. But yeah, Nirvana Unplugged. I think I got it for like $9 or something like that. And I was like, oh, wow. I had heard like something about Nirvana. So figured that I would just pick that album up. So I didn't buy like an actual album. I bought like a live album. And it was just like blown away. Like, wow, this is like really, really cool to hear this and just hear him talking between songs and stuff like that. So like almost like my first album was pretty much a concert experience right out of the gate. So I was like, oh, this is how music really translates. Like, you're there, it's a show, you're getting some stories about the songs, or it's just very much in the moment. So I think that's probably why I became such a concert guy. The other albums I got, similar to that, like early '90s type grunge era, or whatever, was the Presidents of the United States of America's first album.
Yeah.
With like Peaches. What else was on that?
Lump.
Lump.
Yeah.
There was
Kitty.
Dune
Kitty.
Buggy. Dune Buggy. Yeah.
Dune
Kitty.
Buggy's on there. Great song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really love that album, and I've seen them a few times. I think they actually called it a day in like 2010 or something. But yeah, I love that album too. And it's like a straight rocker, and it's kind of like almost like a parody band to an extent, but super cool. And then the third album I got, because it was the time, it totally makes sense and actually really documents how young I was the Free Willy soundtrack.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Michael Jackson.
That's a deep dive.
And I definitely bought it. For that Michael Jackson track. Yeah. And I remember I wouldn't listen to anything else but that track, and I would just play it over and over and over. But yeah, those were my first three albums.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never had the Free Willy soundtrack. I had did the Nirvana Unplugged album, was it orange? Like the cover was like an burnt orange.
Kinda. Yep.
Yeah, there's some orange around and white. Yeah.
So I had that.
It's like a white frame.
And then I had the President's album.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
that was, I mean, in hindsight, we were between 8 and 10 years old. That's pretty wild in that era, because all you had was radio. You had MTV,
COI.
and you had MTV.
Yeah.
But besides that, it was what your family was listening to.
Totally. And actually, I'll go next one. I have to kind of segue off of what your family was listening to. The first album I ever owned was Counting Crows, August and Everything After.
Nice.
Nice.
I just remember I was 94-ish, 93, 94 that came out. So 9, 10 years old, being in the car and Mr. Jones coming on, or being in the car with my dad and him being a fan of it, buying the CD, throwing the CD into the CD player, and just being like, I like this album because my dad likes this album, but I also like it. So
Yeah.
August and Everything
cool.
After. I'm full disclosure, I'm an insulin dependent diabetic. So my first Halloween as a diabetic, I went out trick or treating, but I sold all my candy to my mom for $15 so I could buy the August and Everything After CD. So that's how deep my nerdery runs right there.
So you were hustling. You were hustling early on to get the music.
Yeah, I was like, Ma, you want to buy this off me? I need that CD. We went to Lechmere, which was where Best Buy is now, at the main mall, and I bought Counting Crows, August and Everything After, and that was my first record. And to this day, on August 1st, I try to throw that album on and listen to it in its entirety, just because I still love it. I mean. It's it's an all-timer for me, and part of it's because I was 9 or 10 and it hit me then, but part of it's because it's really good. Like, it's just a good album.
Such a good album. Great album. Absolutely, man.
And then I'm gonna go a little divergent on that. My second album was Offspring's Smash.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
that doesn't quite fit the Counting Crows mold. Obviously, Offspring, punk band, pop punk at some points, but punk band. Smash is pretty heavy. It's a pretty fast and loud and heavy record for a 9-year-old.
No kidding.
But I loved it, and I remember putting it on the CD player in the living room as a kid, and my mom being like, "What the fuck are we listening to in here?" I was like, "Don't worry about it, Ma. It's just Killboy Powerhead. Like, we're just rocking right now."
There's that track. What's the track on there that's about road rage?
Oh, Bad Habit.
Bad Habit. Whew, man, that song.
On the album. Yeah.
Yeah, that song is very much that song is very much, a time capsule because, LA was wild then. People did carry, they probably still do, but had guns in their fucking glove compartment and stuff.
Yep.
Like,
the thing is about that album, because I remember it's not on my list, but now that you mention it, I definitely had it. We know that music now as punk, but back then it was like, I just like the way this sounds. I don't even know what this is, but it's a little more aggressive than maybe anything I've heard up to this point, and I like it.
Yep. And Dexter he wasn't polished as a lead vocalist. Dexter Holland, the lead vocalist for Offspring, he's not like, go and listen to that. It's not like he sounds amazing.
His voice is very unique, but it's almost like it's bizarre.
It's not Pretty Fly for a white guy, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all over. Like, I read stuff all over the map. And I had to say this because you said the polish thing, and it just reminded me of people that I very much so admire. Dexter Holland is a brainiac, has his PhD.
Super smart.
Yeah, super cool guy, man. PhD in, what is it? Microbiology. And, like rocket science as well or something. Yeah.
That's the only show that I've ever been to where we got a VIP like sticker and it did nothing.
Yeah. So I have a Dexter. Oh, go ahead. And you finish and then I have a Dexter.
Yeah, we were at Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom in New Hampshire, which is a beachside, Jersey Shore knockoff in New Hampshire, Maine, or New Hampshire, Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, and we went down for it was on my birthday, probably, I don't know, 7 years ago. And we went down and we had a friend who was in the industry working at a radio station locally, and he got us tickets and got us these little stickers, and they said VIP on them. And we're like, oh, sweet. So we put the VIP stickers like on, and we're like, all right, we're going to get somewhere. Maybe we'll get to meet the band, or, who knows? No, there was nothing. We watched the show. The show was awesome. They played 20-something songs. It was a lot of fun. We had a blast that night. But yeah, hey, does this VIP sticker do anything, guys? And they're like, no, you're good. You just go home. Get out of here.
VIP does stand for very important person, right?
Yeah, so we should have been backstage.
We're very important people. But yeah, usually VIP also means that you have some kind of like access or something additional than just
I just wanted to go hang out with Dexter and Noodles and, just chill, but.
Oh, man, I would totally geek out about music a little bit, and then it would like probably be about his science background too.
Yeah, I mean, he's a smart dude, so that would have been fun. Go ahead, Twan. What were you going to say?
Yeah, so my Dexter Holland story is, so I don't know if he's still involved in it, but he founded Nitro Records back in the mid-'90s, I think. Well, one of my top 5 bands of all time, Crime and Stereo, put out their second full length on Nitro, and that was in 2006. Well, I remember hearing, I think this was on like some message board or something, so I don't know if you can really trust it, but back in like 2009, Dexter was quoted saying, "I really like this band, Crime and Stereo. I'd love to work with them someday," when they had already put out a fucking album on his label. So when you said he's really smart, I'm like, I have a story that kind of negates that. Again, who knows how true it is, but
it might have been true, but he might have been, maybe he was being sarcastic and trying to plug the band kind of like subconsciously.
Or he just didn't know that they put the album out 3 years prior.
Yeah, you were talking about Deftones last time. Deftones were signed to Maverick, which is was owned by Madonna. It's just
that's right.
Sure. I don't know if she knew.
It'd be funny if Madonna was like, "I love Chino. I would really love to work with Deftones someday."
Well, that's the thing. It's like, is the owner or the founder involved in the day to day? I mean, probably not. But you'd think they'd know who is signed to the label, or at least have input in that respect.
Especially since that's probably a small label, right? It's not like it's friggin' Interscope. Like it's not Jimmy Iovine. It's like, what are we doing here?
Do you have any more, Tom?
All right, back. Yeah, I do. I have one. My third album, which is going to be probably an episode at some point. This band, Green Day's Dookie. Around the same time, we were all 93, 94. That's kind of when I just decided that music was something that I was into. Listening to stuff like Green Day and Offspring on the radio. The local alternative radio station in our town kind of came to be around that time too.
Yep.
94.3 WCOY. They're a little different than they used to be back then because radio has obviously changed. But partially because the Podioslave podcast has taken over. But yeah, back then it was alternative and rock, and you get the Chili Peppers, you get Green Day, and Green Day was huge. Dookie had dropped. You got Basket Case. You got Longview. You got When I Come Around. You got Welcome to Paradise. Like that whole album is just front to back awesome. And I'm a 10-year-old in my room waiting for Fuck Off and Die at the end of the album because it's like, yeah, this is cool. I get to listen to an album that has swears on it. Like my mom bought me the CD. She has no clue.
Parental advisory.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't know and she was cool and I turned out okay. So it worked out. But yeah, no, that was the Green Day. And then and we've talked about this a little bit in the past and it's probably going to be another topic that we delve into a little deeper, but finding a band like that was Green Day's third album. They had put out 2 albums prior that weren't as big, a little bit more immature sounding, younger, pop punky type albums. But like I went back and found those as a 11, 12-year-old and bought those CDs too and just kind of became a Green Day fan from then on out. Now, what they do today, not nearly is into it, but they for a band that's been around for 30 plus years, pretty cool stuff. And they've been kind of the soundtrack for me for a lot of points in my life for the first 20, 25. So seeing them with American Idiot and all that stuff too. So that was my third album. I'm sure you guys owned it as well, because who didn't back then?
Right. I think it went diamond, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember the back of the album very vividly because I remember seeing it on my brother's friend's
the poster.
Coffee. No, it was like the actual CD.
Yeah. It was like an Ernie doll that was like.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the back.
Okay,
but that was only.
Yes.
But it was only on certain copies. It was.
If
only
you're
on
listening, I'm tweeting that picture out right now.
No, but that picture with Elmo is only on certain covers.
Are you kidding me? I had that CD and I'm sure I sold it back. Shit.
Yeah, so some don't have it, but I remember hearing that album at at people's houses, being like, "Oh, this album's rad." And similar. I didn't know that was what punk was, but I was like, "This is really cool." And then I remember checking out the back catalog as well. And my uncle worked in the music industry and gave me the Kerplunk album. Oh, yep, there it is. Yeah, he's showing us right now on the screen.
That was the one I had because it came out when it came out. I got it then, so wow, that's crazy.
Man, Green Day is a great band. They get a bad rep these days if you're an old school fan, like you were just saying, because it's just not the same.
It's not the same band. But good for them for trying. They've done different things, and I'm on board. They got to be close to 50. It's not like they're not going to make pop punk songs like that, or even just punk songs like that forever. You got to change it up and be relevant. And for them to go from Dookie, which was absolutely massive, to American Idiot 11 years later, which was absolutely massive in a completely different way.
Yeah,
good for them. That's just cool. With a little lull in between, even though they had some big songs, like "Time of Your Life" off Nimrod was big. There's "Warning" was decently big. There were some songs in there that were radio songs, but Dookie was huge, and then it took them about 11 years to do that again. But they did it again, and they did it completely differently. So they're a cool band in my assumption.
What's wild about Green Day is the band Operation Ivy used to always pimp Green Day. Like, there's this band Green Day. And then when Green Day came on, they did the same thing for Operation Ivy. And obviously, we know who's bigger. You know what I mean? It's funny how the things come full circle.
Wow. Well, you can't forget the album tone Insomniac. That album was killer.
So good.
Yeah.
I love Insomniac.
But that was basically just more Dookie. It was like
it was a faster Dookie. It was that was a great album.
My favorite.
You couldn't go anywhere without hearing Brain Stew Jaded on the radio. It was always on.
Yeah, that's my favorite album by them. And what's that song I love on there?
Walking Contradiction.
Oh, so good. And that
Do
music
as I
video.
Say, not as I. Oh, the video is great.
Geek Stink Breath. Geek Stink Breath.
Geek Stink Breath.
Yep. 86. There's no return from 86. Don't even try.
That's a fast tempo song. That's an awesome song.
I gotta listen to that again. I have that one too, just kicking around over in my living room on vinyl. I gotta listen to that one again.
That's a great album. I won't touch upon that because we might want to do like a mid to late '90s segment at some point.
We could totally do a Green Day episode.
Exactly. We'll do a Green Day episode. So did you have just 3-tone?
Mm-hmm.
So I
could do my whole discography if you really want.
Save it. Save it.
So I approached this through two different lenses. One was just what albums I got into early on, but then also my earliest music kind of memories. And I'm going to have to go quick because I have 5 pillars, and it just shows you like even 25 years ago, like I lived and breathed this stuff. So the first pillar was, I remember on MTV, there was a rap hip hop countdown show. I cannot remember the name of it, but they had 5 videos and they would count down. And that's when I discovered a few of these artists that I'm going to mention in a second. But then also I have an older sister who was 2 or 3 years older than me. So she was, when I was 9, she was probably 12 or 13. So she was a little older, and I got into music through her. So from a hip hop rap lens, Nas's It Was Written was 96. Yes. So this ranges for me from like 8 to 11. Those are my earliest memories. Nas's It Was Written, Busta Rhymes' The Coming, which was March 96. That was Woo-Ha. The Dog Pound, Dog Food, which was October 95. And
so you hit that before you hit, sorry, I don't mean to jump, but I had to ask. You hit that one before you hit Snoop Dogg Doggy Style?
I would throw that in the mix too.
Okay, because that was 93, so that's why.
So that's why I'm. It's kind of a blur. So like I'm giving like a two-year range type of thing. So, Dog Pound's Dog Food, which was Daz and Corrupt. They had that New York song, Let's Play House. Jodeci's The Show, The After Party, The Hotel, and Adina Howard's Freak Like Me.
So good.
Which was, for a 10-year-old to be listening to that was a little crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the first pillar. The second pillar was rock and heavy music. So I remember in 5th grade, a classmate who, I don't even know where he's at nowadays, but he had Rage's Evil Empire. And I remember at Record Town at the main mall, I picked up the tape. That was kind of my intro to heavy music. The other heavy music one was Marilyn Manson's Portrait of an American Family. So that was before Antichrist Superstar. Dude. And
that has like Cake and Sodomy and Lunchbox, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wild album for a 10-year-old. And then
wild album.
And the other thing everyone needs to remember, and Nate touched upon this with the soundtracks, with Free Willy, was soundtracks were hot. This is when like soundtracks were big. So one of the soundtracks I remember getting into was the Judgment Night soundtrack, which had a hip-hop artist and a metal artist on every song. So Pearl Jam had a track on there, Cypress Hill, Onyx, Helmet, which is like poster child for 90s kind of alt-rock, and Biohazard, which is like New York hardcore band. So that was one area. The third one was kind of radio rock, which we touched upon, but Green Day Dookie. I remember that was on MTV, played the Basket Case video, and that was the first time I ever heard Green Day. And I thought it was like the fastest song I'd ever heard at that point in time. The fourth pillar, and you guys will probably remember this, was the BMG Columbia House Delivery, the Delivery catalog. So I remember getting Blues Travelers 4 and Dave Matthews Under the Table and Dreaming, and of course a number of them, because I think you bought one and got 11 CDs for a penny or something.
You had to do it. Especially as a 10-year-old, you had to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I got Nirvana's Unplugged as well.
Nice.
And then the last one, this one, I actually hadn't thought about this for a long ass time, but I was trying to put myself as an 8 to 10-year-old, and my early exposure to music was Beavis and Butthead. If you remember, they used to critique music videos. So,
so awesome.
I'll never forget, I'm 9 years old, and they have Henry Rollins' band, the Liar song, where he's like just yelling, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't know who this. I actually didn't.
Cartoon is making fun of it.
Yeah, I didn't even know who he was at that point in time, and I didn't even like the music. But I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I remember Pearl Jam. They critiqued Pearl Jam on there, but then they also, someone on the inside at MTV or Beavis and Butthead was a big metal fan. So Entombed, Napalm Death, Crowbar, like all these obscure metal bands.
Gwar.
Yeah, Gwar.
Yeah.
They were on there. So that was kind of my earliest, and I approached this kind of by genre. So you had the hip hop, you had the alt rock, you had the heavy music, and then that was probably my exposure to metal.
Nice.
And
That's
maybe
awesome.
even Ace Ventura, because I think, was it Cannibal Corpse or Napalm Death is in Ace Ventura?
Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
Cannibal Corpse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Barnes, bro.
Chris
Barnes.
So Chris Barnes, actually, of Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under, he was recently in the news because he rejects the pandemic. He doesn't think it's real.
You know what's funny? His a buddy of ours growing up used to work with his wife in Tampa. Like just such a random, because I remember listening to 6 Feet Under in high school as a joke. We would all just kind of knife gun axe, stuff like that. And our buddy Andrew moved to Tampa, and he was like, dude, I work with Chris Barnes' wife. I was like, you would work with his wife.
That's so
what
funny.
a ridiculous world we live in.
Well, we manifest these things. We just don't know it. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, he thinks he's immune to the pandemic. It's wild.
Maybe he is. He does live in Tampa, Florida, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, Florida stories, man.
Yeah, Nate, you got some of those. You live down there, right?
Ooh, I don't know why. I could have died. The place is crazy. No, I'm just kidding. All the Florida people, Florida's cool.
Florida hasn't listened to our podcast yet. We're listening. We're watching. Florida, step your fucking game up.
Shout out to Florida.
Yeah, Florida's cool. I just wanted to do the corners. I did Maine, New York, Florida, Oregon, Cali. Just boom, now I'm here. So it was part of the trek. Yeah.
Twan, I like the way you came at that. Bringing it to the different kind of genres and how you hit all of them, because I definitely listened to hip hop as a 10-year-old too, or a 12-year-old. Tupac, Biggie, throwing on All Eyes on Me, like getting that double album in 6th grade. And I know every word to California Love. I'm not going to prove it right now, but maybe in a future podcast, I know every word to that album or that song. So hip hop was definitely a big. We haven't touched on it a ton here, but hip hop was definitely a big part of our upbringing too.
Yeah, I was late to the table with most hip hop, but I definitely got some of those early records like Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style, Ice Cube, stuff like that, because that was like that era. So you would and Ice Cube would be in movies and stuff, and I think that Family Values tour had Ice Cube on it in '90. That was like '98, but yeah, hip hop, man, we gotta bring that up for sure.
We will. We got plenty to talk about there.
Nice.
And that was what was a lot of all over MTV. And I wish I could remember that countdown show, but that was pretty cool, because I remember
this is pre-TRL.
Pre-TRL, yep. And it was all hip hop, but that was pretty much early exposure to hip hop.
Yeah, MTV was probably my early exposure to hip hop too. Just we didn't have cable till I was in 8th grade, so we'd go to my grandmother's when I was a kid. Days where you weren't at school to be watched, and she had cable, so I'd go upstairs where they had a TV upstairs with cable, one of those little boxes that you pulled the little thing to change a channel, and put it on. Channel 39 was MTV, and I just put it on MTV, and I'd watch whatever was on there, because I was like, I like music, and this is cool. There's videos to it.
MTV was so good. It was so good then.
You're a 10-year-old, and you're like, this is cool. I don't have this at home. I'm gonna go upstairs and watch MTV, guys.
And they do, I feel like it was annually, but they do the 100 best music videos of all time, and you'd get I think it's Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer was always up there.
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses was always up there, but
November Rain.
Rain was always
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And are you guys How I Met Your Mother fans?
I've watched some episodes. I do find it funny. I wasn't a full on from start to finish.
I actually haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it? Well, one of the characters.
Love Siegel.
he always references like future me will appreciate this. Well, if I could go back in time, if with that same mindset, like future me will appreciate these albums, like that, all those albums kind of changed the game for me because it was an introduction to each of those genres. And that's what I still listen to now. I listen to the heaviest, the heavy. I listen to alt rock. I listen to hip hop. So I appreciate previous me for those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little going back to what you were saying at the beginning. You had an older sister,
right?
And Nate, you had an older brother. I'm the oldest, so I was kind of, I wasn't like,
you gotta
impressed. I wasn't impressed. I had friends, which was you guys, obviously, and a few others that helped me find stuff, but I didn't have that older sibling to impress. I had a couple older cousins that helped. My older cousin Joe was the reason I got into Rage, so I did have some of that, but I didn't have it like at home, where they were like, "Hey, this is what," walk into your brother's room and they're listening to Rage Against the Machine, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is friggin' awesome.
I like this. What is this? I'm in."
Yeah. What is this?
This is something I've never heard before as a 11-year-old. I'm fucking in. Like,
yeah.
So I'm a little jealous of you guys having that. I know both of your older siblings are into music and would have been able to kind of introduce you to some stuff. I tried to do that with my brother. He definitely. We brought him to Foo Fighters. Nate, remember we brought him to Foo Fighters back 8 or 9 years ago when you got back from California. And we, that was a blast. So it took some time and some getting used to, but he definitely got into it a little bit too. So I tried to do that for my younger siblings, but I'm a little jealous of you guys having the older ones for that reason.
Yeah, well, it was never on purpose. It was almost like from my experience, it was like no, this is my music, this is my stuff, and I'm like trying to like, poke my head and like, oh, what is this? What is this? What is this cool stuff? And then similar to your experience, we didn't have cable either. So like I had to like, if I was at a friend's house that had cable, all I wanted to do was watch MTV, but everyone else wanted to watch like Nickelodeon or something else. I'm like, come on. But I didn't have cable till, like 8th grade or freshman year of high school is when I first got it. And I remember it was still good then, MTV. That's actually when it switched over, I guess.
You're like, guys, Rugrats is cool. But have you seen that 9 Inch Nails Closer video? Holy shit!
Exactly.
Which actually, I think that got banned. I don't even think that was on.
It did. Yeah.
It was.
No, they had to play it after 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or something. Yeah.
So those are early.
Duck funny, but no.
So those are early album and first intro to music. We obviously didn't jump right into going to live music, but that progressed as the years went on. What are your earliest show memories?
I'll start. I wrote down the first show I ever went to. We were juniors in high school, 17 years old. I saw Barenaked Ladies at the Civic Center in Portland, Maine, the Cumberland County Civic Center. At the time, it's something else now. That was a couple years after they had kind of really gotten huge in America with 1 Week and the album Stunt, which you guys are aware of. Portland always got Barenaked Ladies. They're a Canadian band. They would always play Portland. They would always find their way to Portland. They got the key to the city at one point. They were big time fans of the local radio station that we grew up with, 94.3 WCYY. So they were around. They were something that was always on the radio. I remember going on road trips with my dad as a kid and listening to Rock Spectacle, which is their live album, which is an awesome live album. If you haven't listened to it, it's fun. It's a great road trip album. It's just old Barenaked Lady songs out in the world. And that kind of got me into them as a kid. So me and a childhood friend of mine would always talk about BNL. And when they came to Portland in 2001, we went. A week later, going from one end of the spectrum to the other, I was at the State Theater, which is a tiny little venue in Portland, Maine, that holds maybe 1,600 people or so, 1,400 people, something like that, right?
Amazing venue. Amazing venue.
It's where we grew up. I love that venue. I've seen so many shows there. But we went to Rustic Overtones. I think they were touring, I put that in air quotes, for Viva Nueva, which had come out around that time. So they were a local band in Portland, Maine that had kind of hit it with the Tommy Boy Records. They put that album out, Viva Nueva, on Tommy Boy, which was national. It's their first national release. They put a couple albums out locally that were really well received locally in Portland, Maine, but never like hit. But then Tommy Boy dropped all of their rock acts, and they kind of got left by the wayside. But I remember seeing them a bunch of times at the State Theater, among other places, the Big Easy, outside venues, stuff like that, Port City. But that show was the first time I think I'd ever been to a show with any of my high school friends, you guys being included. I'm pretty sure both of you were there. And then we saw them like 8 months later for their, again, air quotes, farewell show, which they're still around now. So they didn't actually farewell. They've just changed lineups a little bit. But that was that's my second show a week later. And then I was took a little break, saw Incubus at the Civic Center for the Civic Tour in 2002, a couple days after our junior year ended. On the tour was supposed to be Hoobastank and Phantom Planet. Hoobastank wasn't at that Portland show for some reason. I think they did the first half of the tour. I tried to find out. I couldn't find where they were. But Phantom Planet had that big song on the OC. Remember the OC, the TV show on Fox? California. Huge song. That song was great. Yeah. So I remember walking into that concert at that point where they were playing California and getting ready to be done with their set, and then seeing Incubus for Morning View, I believe. They were on tour from Morning View. So that was an awesome show. I just like one of those like point. Yeah, they were on the Honda Civic Tour, so they were obviously big. At that point, the Honda Civic Tour meant you had kind of made it as a band. So they were. I remember leaving that show and bringing it kind of full circle for me. The last show I had been at was Rustic Overtones at the State Theater, and physically running into the lead singer of Rustic Overtones at the Incubus show. So like, there's Dave Gutter is his name, and be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man? I know you." Like. And I'm just a 17-year-old, bright-eyed, like, holy shit, I'm seeing somebody I just saw on stage 6 months ago. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. And then I remember going that summer and going to Bull Moose again to try to win tickets to see System of a Down and POD at the Civic Center for they were one of their off days for Ozfest. So went to win tickets there. I think, Twan, you went with me. It's Setla and maybe Ian. Setla, hey, there he is. Setla over in the corner. He's looking up what date that was right now. July 15th, right? Yep, July 15th. Huh. So I won the last ticket they had at Bull Moose that day. Nice. And went to that show. And that was the first pit I ever got into. And I was just like, I remember leaving that show and my shirt being just drenched because it was July in Maine, which was 80 degrees. And just being in the pit the whole time and being like, I feel alive right now. Like, I just made it through that, and I love this shit. Like, I want to go to more of this stuff. And that was kind of when the bug hit me, and then I, from there on out, saw a bunch of shows. So that was kind of my early concert history. I was going into that System of a Down show scared. I was scared I was going to get beaten up in the pit because I'd never been in one. And I was like, I played football. I was used to contact. But I was like, I don't even know if I want to stand in there. Right. And then it happened, and I was like, screw it. I'm going for it. And I was just like banging into people. I'm like, okay, people they're just having fun in here. Like, this is fun. This is fine.
No, it's valid to be worried because New England's got a pretty hardcore metal scene, and like people get in the pit, and it's like a sport, So there's a reason to be concerned in that general area. I wouldn't worry about it in SoCal. It's pretty loose.
Well, and we were high school age, so we're going into our senior year of high school, and I'm in pretty good shape because I played sports and spent some time in the weight room, but not so much today. But back then I was like, yeah, no, I should be able to handle that. And then it gets closer and then a pit breaks out in front of me, and I'm like, this is it. Time to go. Fight or flight, baby. Let's get in there. And I, and had a blast at that show. And that was a pretty heavy. They were on tour for Toxicity on the Ozfest with POD, and POD had some hits too. I mean, I looked at that set list, and they played 10 songs or so, and they were all at that point big. They
were really big. Yeah, Satellite was their biggest album.
Very, very big. Yep. So and then saw them a couple times. They opened for Linkin Park a couple of years later when I saw them. So big time. At that point, just being at shows, I was like, this is fun. Like, okay, I could see myself really getting into being at this stuff, and I like the feeling I get, when the lights dim and the band goes on the stage, and you're like, this is why I came. This is friggin' cool. Like, I'm excited about this.
I'll jump in. So for me, early exposure was 99, 2000. So in 99, I went to actually before that. So the local radio station we touched upon was WCYY. They used to have patio shows in downtown Portland. I saw the band Better Than Ezra there, which I'm estimating was probably 97. But again, at that time, you probably knew one radio song, and it was just background music. You're just dicking around with your friends. It wasn't really a true concert. From there, I remember seeing Rustic Overtones locally in Portland. As you said, Tony, they were probably they could be the biggest band to come out of Maine, the state of Maine. And they made a splash early 2000s. I remember going to State Theater shows, the Big Easy, all relatively small venues at the time. I saw Def Leppard and Joan Jett at the Civic Center in Portland, Maine, which was like 8,000 people. But those are really concerts. Like it's a different experience than what I would call a show. The first kind of shows I really got into were like 311 at the State Theater in 2000, year 2000.
Yes.
I was there, yeah.
And again, that's a whole different experience than anything I'd seen up to that point, because the energy was it's different, much different.
Yeah.
From there, and I had to dig. So I've, in true nerd fashion, I've kept track of every show I've ever been to. So I dug in a spreadsheet with the date, the venue, every band, and around 2000 into 2001 is when I started going to shows at the Asylum, which is a venue in Portland, Maine, which probably at the time held 400 or 500 people, maybe. And at that point in time, nu metal was big, and nu metal bands would play with true metal bands or even some hardcore bands. So a few bands that I pulled out from those early shows were Gangsta Bitch Barbie, which they transitioned to Nullset. And I think they were from the Northeast. The band Candiria played the Asylum. I saw them. The band Tree, they were from they were from Boston area. They call themselves Boston Hardwood. The band Kitty at the State Theater with Seventh Rail Crew, which was like a rap metal-ish band. E-Town Concrete, which was E-Town Concrete. They were kind of like rap metal meets like Jersey hardcore. The band East Side, which was kind of in that same vein. Reveille, they were from the Northeast, I think Western Mass. Yeah. Totally fit that nu metal vibe. Primer 55 and Downset. So they were all kind of
nice
nu metal and like Ozfest bands, like ish.
Yep.
And some of those bands had like kind of like hardcore band roots, which was a segue. And then also at that same time, I was big into like Warped Tour bands. So I remember the Movie Life came to Portland in like 2000, 2001, Goldfinger. And at that point, all bets were off. I'm like, I'm in. And all those bands, they're so different, but I liked them all. And the energy was up there for all of them. So, yeah, a lot of early Asylum. The Asylum was a venue in Portland, as I mentioned. Asylum shows. There was a old porno theater that was converted to a venue in Portland. It's now Gino's, but it was the Skinny. I remember seeing shows at the Skinny, and I liked that venue. But yeah, this was all pre-licensed too. So I either got picked up or I got, by a friend, or I got my parents to drop me off.
Yeah, no Uber back then. Like you needed a ride.
Yeah. So I mean, 20 years later, still doing the same thing. I would say I don't go to as many shows, but that was the genesis of it. Was a lot of local stuff and then a lot of like nu metal and metal.
The cool thing about where we grew up is we, at the time, if you were trying to come up and like really be semi-grassroots and hit all 50 states, but see kind of a smaller venue, footprint, Portland got hit a lot. So we back then would see a lot of bands on their smaller trajectory on their early tours. And it's like the Killers played the Space in Portland, Maine. Like stuff like they before they became absolutely massive, they were playing a room that held a couple hundred people in Portland,
and that
Maine.
Was for Hot Fuss too, which is
it was
biggest
before.
wow. Yeah,
right. So we would get we had venues of a couple of different sizes. Civic Center holding about 8,000 people, State Theater holding like 1,500. And then you have places like Asylum and the Skinny and Geno's / that type of thing that were smaller, that really clubby type shows for Portland. So because we were in, the Great White North cold area, we would get bands to come through. And even looking at that System of a Down show I was talking about, they would come on an off day to make a little extra money and play a show in Portland. That was their show. So we were fortunate at that time in the boon of shows to get some of those bigger or even like medium-sized acts as they were coming up, or even small acts before they became massive acts, to come up and play our town. And if you were at all dialed in, you would kind of catch them on their rise, which is cool.
That's totally true, because in hindsight, I mean, now like we know, like, the hassles to get to the Northeast in a touring route, but back then you just didn't. I didn't even think about that. So like, I'm just shocked we got what we got in hindsight. But one last band that I forgot to mention was local, was 6 Gig. They used to play would you call them new metal like radio rock?
Yeah, they were around that time.
And they used to open.
They were definitely going for that sound.
They used to open for a lot of state theater shows, and that was probably 2000, 2001 maybe.
Yep.
So Nate, you're up.
6 Gig, man. I haven't heard that in a while. Great band, local band, Portland, Maine.
Yesterday. That song is awesome.
Yesterday.
Hit the ground.
Hit the ground. Yeah.
Hit the ground. Yeah, Hit the Ground's a great song too. Check out 6 Gig.
Yeah, they opened for everyone that came to the State Theater.
Yeah,
they really did. They were always there.
It's a residency. Yeah. Man, this was a cool thing to dig up, because we've all been to a ton of shows, but to go back to the very beginnings, it was like, I just recently moved, so all my stuff's boxed up, so it's not easy to access. I don't have my stuff in a spreadsheet, Twan, but I'm gonna probably do that now. It's just a really good. Yeah, it is a nerd thing to do.
I'm kidding. I want to do the same thing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be doing that. That's
it's
gonna
fun
be my
to do. It's super fun to do.
It's gonna be a quarantine project, as well as getting all my ticket stubs, which is the only way that I'm able to track what shows I've been to. And it's just like 2 huge boxes full of stubs and passes and set lists and cool stuff like that. But I didn't dig them up, because I actually do remember at least the first like cluster of shows that I went to, because it was such an impressionable time to be like seeing all this stuff. So Rustic, it's funny, we all did the Rustic thing because they were like a local band, and obviously, they were getting pumped pretty heavy on local radio and stuff like that. So I think that was actually my first concert experience, and I had the tickets, Bull Moose ticket stub.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of those like little small ones they would print, and it has like a little barcode
like rip
on
in
it.
half.
Yeah. So I actually don't have like the venue's kind of like cut off, but it's one of those tickets. So I know it's not a state one because those are Ticketmaster. So I think it was actually the Big Easy or the Skinny,
which is a Big Easy, another tiny venue, a couple hundred people tops.
Yeah, it was whatever. It was either one of those two, because I remember Asylum went all ages in 2000, I think, but they were like 21 plus, and now they're back to 21 plus. But I have that as like the first show, and then the second show I went to was the Snowcore tour in '99, and that was with Everclear, Soul Coughing, and Black Eyed Peas before they like really blew up.
Wow, that's a good pull.
Before Fergie?
That was before Fergie.
Yeah, she wasn't in the band. Yeah, she wasn't in the band yet. They took off. I'm
a nerd. I know stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of Gwen Stefani earlier, the last time I saw Black Eyed Peas was them opening for her in 2006.
Yep.
I think. Yeah, for her solo record. And then in this cluster of like first shows was Kiss on their farewell tour in 2000.
Wow.
So these are kind of spanning like 99, 2000 era. And a friend of ours' father worked security at the Civic Center, so he snuck me and a buddy in.
That's awesome.
Show was way oversold, and it was for their farewell tour, all original members. It was the last tour they did as an original lineup with Ace Frehley and everyone. And the show was incredible. Like, I wish I was a Kiss fan more so before that, because that's what got me into Kiss. And I was like, this band is so amazing. Like, amazing live show, amazing just like sing along songs. Talk about what you were mentioning earlier with songs that were made to be played live. Like, that Kiss is all about that, you know. And this is like a farewell tour, so it's a real like extravagant show, and it was just really amazing to see. I just remember walking out of that show being like, I can't believe what I just saw. Like, that was incredible, you know. So it's kind of like small, medium, large, you know, like little club show, theater show. Kiss was like the Civic Center in Portland, so that was like my first like arena show, and like seeing them in movies, like, oh, this is what like an arena show is like. All right. But the one that really takes the cake is when I was getting in trouble for not abiding to our curfew as a kid. And I came home like third time late, and I felt really bad about it. But I was like, oh, it's only like, you know, 8:15 and not 8 or whatever. It's not too much, you know, not a crazy rebel, but that was like rebelling, I guess. My mom like randomly surprised me. This is like out of nowhere. And she said, hey, I was like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. She's like, your brother's going to be going on a little road trip with his friend Joe and their father, who lived on the street parallel to ours in South Portland. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, and I got you a ticket as well for this little adventure. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, what is it? And it was Woodstock 99.
Dude, yeah.
That's wild.
And I was like, what? Like, what is Woodstock? I didn't even really know what was going on. And I think it was like, she was just trying to like surprise me. It's like the coolest thing. And I had no idea what I was in for at all. You know, this is 99, so I was still kind of getting into music. And this is like a massive lineup. And that like changed everything for me. Live music wise, different genres, like, you know, Metallica was on that gig. Alanis Morissette's on that gig. Limp Bizkit's on that gig. Like Bush, DMX for rap, Chili Peppers. I mean, I don't even have the lineup in front of me, but it's just like, it's everything. It's really cool.
I'm pulling it up now, and
nice.
Nate, you could do a whole half an episode on explaining that trip to us. You have, I'm sure you have. I mean, you were there for the Limp Bizkit set that was like broke music, live music for a little while. Like, people didn't want to go to shows because of how
the plywood surfing,
that got.
Plywood surfing.
Yeah, that festival wasn't mayhem until the end, but it was definitely like, you could feel it building up. Even as like a kid, I was like a kid, and they're like going around. It's like scorching hot. This is like a naval air base, which is like a concrete jungle. And they're selling, this is 99, and they were selling bottled water as a vendor for upwards of $20 sometimes. And it was like, are you guys trying to like what's going on here? This is ridiculous. Like $20 for a bottled water. You think about inflation, like, or even vendor prices today. Like, you buy a beer at a venue and it's like overpriced at like 10 or $15 for 24-ounce beer, which is ludicrous. But, you know, this is 2020. This was 1999. Like, so people rioted for many reasons, and that was stirring the pot for sure. But yeah, we'll go into that on another episode. But yeah, so when I saw that gig, and we left early, so we left before the riots, because my brother's friend, his father had to be back at work on Monday. And this is the summer for us, so we were off as like kids, because it was July of 99. And we left, and then the next day I was seeing all the stuff on MTV, because like you were saying earlier, we had just gotten MTV around then, and seeing this like mayhem. I'm like, wow, we just dodged that crazy mayhem. But
there were 400,000 people in attendance. That was when I just pulled it up just to look at the lineup. That was even more shocking than the impressive lineup was the attendance.
That's so many people.
That's
a sea of people.
And it was just like hot and
insanely hot. Yeah, the sea of people thing was my first time seeing it firsthand, because that first episode, I think we were talking about Rage Against the Machine, and me seeing those like VHS tapes of Rage like in like festivals in Europe and seas of people. And then I saw it firsthand. I was like, wow, that's just, you can't even like comprehend it. It's just like insane.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
throw crazy heavy music. I mean, the one that really stuck out, obviously, because I think I was just already I was like a rock fan, but was like Limp Bizkit into Korn into Rage Against the Machine into Metallica. So they were just back to back.
Yeah,
was
you
like,
know who's before that was Alanis Morissette, Dave Matthews, Counting Crows, Wyclef, Kid Rock. That was on that Saturday, so pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wild day of music. Seven Dust was there too, right? I feel like
Yeah.
Seven Dust was there.
Seven Dust was there.
Seven Dust was was there. Who else was there from that like new metal scene? Or not new metal, but
Godsmack.
Godsmack. Yeah.
Megadeth actually headlined Sunday night one of the stages, which is interesting.
Yeah. Even 99 they weren't really big at that point.
Creed, Jewel, Everlast, Willie Nelson.
So crazy. Like what a mishmash.
Yeah. I remember
Guster.
all night.
Were they there?
Yep.
Guster was there, yeah. That was the first time I saw Guster.
Talk about one of these things is not like the other. Like
Yeah,
I love Guster. I've seen Guster like 6 times, but that doesn't fit.
Well, it was literally like a European festival because it was
Yeah.
like European festivals are like that where you get like, you know, Kiss headlining and then the second night is like Elton John or something crazy, like cool stuff like that. But
And that's
I think
great.
that was
As a nerd, you want those.
Oh yeah. So this was like my first experience of that. But I think it was the first time the US had done a festival that was so eclectic, and then the riots made it so no one wanted to do festivals. So like 2000 there was no festivals really, and then 2001 I think is when the first Coachella was, and then it like all spawned from there, the festival scene.
And even if you look back at Woodstock 94,
Mhm.
Woodstock 94 was more like the original Woodstock. Like it was chill. It was, and there were some heavy acts at that. I think Metallica was at that, among others, but it wasn't to the level of what 99 turned into. Like 99 got out of hand at points. So, and that was only 5 years later. Like what, it blows me away as to how things can change so quickly. I mean, we've seen that with our world today too, but
yeah.
wow.
Well, then it was just like advertisement plastered everywhere. I remember it was being televised on MTV like nonstop. So there was a lot of like, pay to play advertising going on. So it was like a corporate crazy, cash grab, but it didn't feel like it at the festival, except for the people like the vendors selling water. Like the merch was still like at that point, like $20 for a t-shirt instead of like what you're paying today, like sometimes like $45 for a t-shirt. Yeah. So it was really just like the water vendors. Even the food was like generic. So the water thing, water and ice. So basically the stuff that people actually really needed. That they gouge it, kind of like what's going on now. And you see stories with hand sanitizer and stuff. It's like there was gouging going on, but I didn't think you could gouge that much as a vendor.
People will pay for it, then you're gonna put it that way, and then that's sad. Obviously, if it's a necessity and people are just trying to like be okay. But yeah, no, that's what happens. Just to kind of put a bow on it, I think the running theme of the night is we all had cool moms.
Yeah.
Right? Like Twan, your mom was giving you rides to and from shows. Nate, your mom bought you a Woodstock ticket. My mom bought me albums with parental advisory on them and didn't worry about it. Like we had cool moms.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
shouts to the moms out there.
Because nowadays, like, I mean, the lyrics now are lyrics now are arguably worse, like in terms of like hip hop and whatnot. But I wouldn't want a 10-year-old listening to what I was listening to.
No, but again, we all turned out okay.
Right. So I was looking at the Woodstock lineup, and the best transition is the Roots into Insane Clown Posse into George Clinton.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
What time does it say? What time George Clinton played at?
8:30 to 10.
Was he by himself or
on Friday night on the West stage?
Parliament.
Just as him.
Okay, so I remember, since you brought that up, I remember going to bed or going back to the tent, and George Clinton playing Way After Dark, Way After Dark, and they kept playing it. So I think they played way over curfew on that song. So I remember I was like waking up, like me and my brother couldn't sleep, and it was like 1 a.m. and they just kept playing that song. So they were probably like,
awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, like this is just non-ending.
Here's some torture.
Yeah, he headlined the West stage on Friday.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then the
That's
other
crazy.
headliner on the other stage was Bush, right?
Yeah, so it was staggered. So Korn finished. Actually, Korn was at the same time as George Clinton, maybe. But who
No,
knows?
Korn was the same day. Korn was the same day as Metallica and Rage. It was like they were literally on the same stage.
Saturday, right?
Yeah,
That was a Saturday. Yeah.
Oh, Saturday. Oh,
That's
But
you're
yeah,
right.
Friday. I remember Friday Bush closed, and there was a great performance. And then I met Gavin Rossdale at a different time at a show. It wasn't actually the show you and me went to, Tone, different show. And I actually had him sign the Woodstock '99 stuff.
You've met him twice. You're so cool.
Well, I was
No,
like,
that's
I want to get the stub signed by all the headliners, and so I got him. I wanted to get James Hetfield from Metallica to sign the stub, and then Anthony Kiedis from Chili Peppers. But it probably never happened. But you know,
I mean, you can still try. There's still time.
yeah. Well, for a while I was like collecting and like framing all this stuff, and then I was like, this is like such a big task. I'm gonna do what Twan's doing, just database, keep it clean, simple.
Yeah. Can't lose it if it's in the cloud, right?
Yeah, but stubs though, you need the stubs. So you take a picture of the stubs and add them to the database, or no?
No, I haven't gone to that level yet. I still have all the stubs, but what I found is a lot of those shows a lot of the shows I've been to
don't have stubs.
Don't have stubs at all.
They took them. They took them when you walked in.
Or they took them, or it was all. And nowadays it's all on your phone. But even back then, it was pay at the door, like for local stuff.
Oh yeah,
for local stuff.
Nope, I see that with the Asylum. Did you go? Speaking of that Asylum, those shows, because I went to a few of those like punk shows, like the Hippos and H2O and
the Urge.
I was gonna say, did you go to that Urge Mess?
No, I didn't.
Show?
No.
Urge and Mess. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I was gonna throw that in as one of my first ones because that was my first like ska punk band show, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm into this Southern California, like even though they're from St. Louis, but and
they had that vibe though. They had that Southern Cali vibe
for sure.
Yeah. There's definitely influence there. What was another one? Suicide Machines. Did you see that one?
I didn't see that one, but they fit that mold for sure.
That was an off Warped Tour date. That was like my first like real punk show, I think. But
I always look at like if a band's coming to the Northeast and I'm like, oh, maybe they have a day in between their show in New York and their show in Boston, and maybe they'll play Portland. I'm just like looking for the off date all the time,
happens.
always.
Oh, yeah.
And if they have it, like maybe I'll just like slide into the DMs and be like, hey, how about the State Theater tonight? Like, come on over, baby. Come on over.
That's so funny. Yeah, take the influence from the fans. We know what's best,
We want you here right now. Just come over. It only has to be one night.
Don't worry about the advance. Don't worry about capacity. We got this.
I will bring you all the green M&Ms you want. We can save that for another day.
Oh, that's definitely. I think that's definitely a future
Tour
segment.
rider, yeah.
Tour riders, bizarre tour rider requests.
For sure.
Nice. That'll be the cliffhanger for this episode.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like we touched on a pretty wide array of topics tonight. For that, we can probably call it quits there. If you guys want to follow us, we have a couple of different socials. Check us out at Podioslave on Twitter, at Podioslave on Instagram. We have the Podioslave podcast at gmail.com if you want to drop us an email and let us know that you've listened. We're up on Spotify. We're up on Google Podcasts. We're up on Apple Podcasts now, finally. They hit us up finally. It took about 10 days, but we got up on them. So let us know where you're listening. If there's something you want us to do in the future, talk about in the future, we would love to hear from somebody out there who we don't know that has listened to our podcast. We've had some people out there who are like, someone heard that from Pennsylvania? Oh, cool. Like, I wonder who that could be. So if it's you, toss us a line. Let us know how it's going.
Yeah, it's cool. We can see the metrics on where the listeners are, every state. So let's get some listens. Get some Midwest listens in there somewhere in the South, maybe.
And if you're really bored, I've been trolling ads on Twitter with the Podioslave Twitter. So like I'm just like, oh, Alexa says play the song, or play the Podioslave podcast. Check us out. So I feel like I'm a fairly funny follow between the three of us. So we're doing a pretty good job with that. So check us out.
I mean, it's getting eyeballs. I don't know if it translates to people checking
knows?
out
Yeah, I don't
the podcast. But hey, it's fun. At minimum, it's
I'm
fun.
enjoying myself. Yeah, that's what I told you yesterday. I told you guys yesterday. This is a top 5 development for me. Is that I've been able to troll ads on Twitter, and I never could do that in the past. I just love it. I think it's funny.
And it's like the most innocent way. It's not like you're like really
Yeah,
trying to spam someone.
Yeah.
Like listen to us like Nimrod's on the radio or on the podcast for whatever hour and a half, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're bored at home, press P for Podioslave. Let's go. Why don't you tell me what you want to hear? All right, guys.
That was fun. We dug deep into the archives with early memories and with shows, and yeah, a couple of those albums we'll have to hit is a full deep dive. Dookie comes to mind, but I think for tonight we'll probably wrap it.
Yeah, and we'll be back at you next week. We figured out a way to do this from 3 separate venues, so all goes well. We'll be back at it next Friday night.
Thanks all. We'll tune in next week.
Peace.
Cheers.